We're back in the land of ooh for episode 2 of Fionna and Cake. This time catching up with Simon Petrikov in the decade or so after the events have come along with me. To be honest, Simon isn't doing so hot these days. He's torn between longing for the magical world he once knew as the Ice King and finally living as the sane version of himself again. Plus, he's got some pretty dangerous plans hidden away in his closet that even an adventure with Finn can't shake. This episode is jam-packed with Easter eggs and callbacks, so today, I'm breaking down all of them for you. You're watching WhitneyVision, and this is every detail you might have missed in episode 2, Simon Petrikov. This is your spoiler warning! If you haven't watched episode 2 of Fionna and Cake yet, hit pause on this video and come back once you've final destination to Mud Skipper. Let's start with the intro, which opens on a distant shot of the floating human village of Ooh before zooming us in for a closer look at the city. But then things get real weird real quick. For starters, many of the scenes we see are intercut with flashes of TV static or glitches, almost as if someone is changing the channel. The camera takes the viewer through the back of Simon's head, where we briefly see a shot of the outside of Fionna and Cake's apartment building. Afterwards, we're taken even deeper into Simon's brain, where we see a gulp charm dangling from an electrical clip. Previously, we've seen wires like these used to siphon magic from powerful spellcasters. In the Adventure Time finale, Betty was drawing power from Maja the Sky Witch so that she could harness the power of Gulb. This shot here implies that even though Simon is normified, he's somehow tethered to Gulb or to Gulb Betty, either through literal magic means or emotional. Gulb is, after all, fused with his darling Betty. Once magical electricity passes through this Gulb totem, it flashes to black and white, mirroring the Gulb-Betty fusion in Come Along With Me. As we see in this episode, Simon is seeking to reunite with Betty, and to do so, he'll have to rupture the bond between Betty and Gulb, releasing the chaotic deity. This magical severing serves as the inciting incident of this intro, and causes the multiversal montage to begin. Considering the dark content of this episode, with Cake escaping into his world after dabbling with dark magic, we've likely witnessed the separation of Gulb and Betty, and it's only a matter of time till we discover the Pandora's box that Simon has opened. We get brief glimpses of Fionna walking outside of a food store, followed by a shot of what looks like the same place in an effed up post-Mushroom War landscape. Note the tiny bear hat making its way across the screen. This is probably the human girl that Simon makes cry, aka Astrid. The next cut gives us Finn walking through the heart of the forest back in Ooh with his Jake tattoo. Next, we see the version of the tree that Shermie and Beth discover at the end of Come Along With Me. The camera lingers on the base of the trunk for a moment before the channel changes again. This tree and the sword stuck in it are the remains of Fern, Finn's grassy clone. You can also see that there's still debris from Gulb's monsters destroying Finn and Jake's treehouse that used to be in the same spot. The next cut shows us the tree with a thicker trunk, hinting that we might get to see Shermie and Beth's timeline or another multiverse where Fern's tree has grown much larger. Horrifyingly, the following scene shows an explosion at Fionna's apartment, which could be foreshadowing an unfortunate fate befalling Fionna's world. The burn in the center of the image almost looks like a destroyed photograph, much like the Betty photo that gets burnt by Simon later in the episode. In black and white, several images of Simon's head flash across the screen, until we see the exposed ice portal that Cake jumped through twinkling out the back of his noggin. But here's where the tone slightly shifts. Once we start to see the original Adventure Time variants of Fionna and Cake running and fighting and panting their way through different scenarios, the intro starts to feel more like that of a 90s cartoon, as opposed to the previous episode's sitcom intro vibes. In the same way that a lot of cartoons utilize scenes from upcoming or previous episodes in their intros, this part of the intro shows Fionna and Cake getting up to various hijinks in what could be scenes from the Ice King's Fionna and Cake stories or future moments of the season. Unlike the previous, more lyrically focused theme song, this theme song is mostly instrumental jazz, not unlike a lot of 90s cartoons that featured minimal lyrics or no lyrics at all, like Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Angry Beavers, Rocko's Modern Life, and Hey Arnold. We see Fionna and Cake dash through Prismo's time room, sword fight their way through an army of banana people, and sob through a harsh desert landscape that reminds me a lot of the journey that Marceline and her mom endured. Peep Fionna's backpack in this clip. It looks very similar to Fern's backpack design. And the jacket she's wearing in the desert is nearly the same one that Finn's dad, Martin Mertens, wears in the episode The Visitor. Cake shows off her shapeshifting prowess while Fionna runs alongside her. Cake even shapeshifts into the form of Jake. The intro ends with Simon hanging on to an interdimensional Tetris piece, similar to the type that floats around Gulb's head. Looks like his wish crown is attached, which is a bit curious considering that it fused with Gunther to make him into the ice thing and Come Along With Me. Could this be another ice crown from across the multiverse? The episode Simon Petrikov begins with a flashback, picking up right before the episode Simon and Marcy. Simon's still mostly human here, but soon he'll be going full Ice King in a crown-powered standoff with the Oozers. But for now, the two hide in a sewer from the Oozers, and Simon fixes Marceline's button using a pun, a sewing kit. This kitten looks a bit like Cake too. The button that pops off of Marcy also mirrors the button missing from Hambo's face in the future. Evoking this imagery reminds us that Marcy's innocence is waning, and soon she'll be without someone to sew Hambo together. But for now, even in this apocalyptic nightmare world, she has someone there to care for her and to keep her together. She still gets to be a child. Likewise, Simon has someone to care for. He has purpose in this scene, which he's desperately lacking in his current life. Unlike Fiona, who was dragged out of her dream by the merciless tone of her alarm clock, Simon is wide awake when his own starts blaring and waits to stifle his bell at 8 a.m. on the dot. It's clear from the box of sleeping pills nestled onto his nightstand that this isn't Simon's first sleepless night, and the self-help pro-positivity books and living room decor also suggest that this dude has been struggling to find happiness for a while now. He's got Seeing the Good and A Positive Life for some light reading, nice puffs for conscious snacking, and several cheesy signs that read grateful and life's a journey, live it, and be yourself. This dude is literally one live, laugh, love, throw pillow away from completely losing it. Simon also has trinkets, paintings, statues, portraits, and other antique artwork decorating his living space, as he used to be an archaeologist and antiquarian before the Mushroom War. He even has a little statue of a pig eating a cookie next to his sink, possibly a reference to Tree Trunks' husband, Mr. Pig. On his desk, he's fashioned a pair of red wire glasses for one of his statues so that it resembles Betty, not unlike the statue in Fiona's universe, and he also has a photo of Betty above his workstation. He's got a doodle of Gulb on his desk as well. There's also this flower, which is another symbol of Betty in her current suspended state. Weirdly, he also has an unframed photo of a can of soup in his bedroom and a framed one of a jar of mayonnaise in his kitchen. It turns out that Simon is now living in a historic human village that takes visitors through the centuries of Ooh. It's not just like a bizarre solo project of Simon's. One of his neighbors has a whole caveman display set up, and Simon is teaching new humanity about the wonders of 20th century living. I love the joke that this was the Dusty era. Simon even has a book on his shelf called Dusty Mechanisms. Based on the neon sign for Dirt Beer Guy's Upton Express seen later in the episode, I think it's safe to assume that Upton is the name of the island. And listen, I get that it's probably called that because it's a town up in the sky, but I like to believe that it's because Simon taught the Founders Island folks about Billy Joel. It's interesting that this flying human island is built as its own community, separate slightly from Ooh and its magic kingdoms. They're still on an island, only this one is way closer. This degree of separation is likely due to the humans' apprehension of the magical world. Remember, they had to flee from the mainlands due to vampires and mutants, which gave rise to their isolationist society that Finn and Susan Strong softened in the island's miniseries. Although the humans voluntarily moved to Ooh in the epilogue of Come Along With Me, they probably still have some residual apprehension about sentient fruits and a princess who can spray jelly beans out of her hands. They're also likely doing it as a way to preserve their own lost culture, history, and identities. As the minority population in Ooh, it makes sense that they'd want to create their own space. But although Simon is clearly doing his best impersonation of someone who isn't clinically depressed, a little girl cosplaying as Fiona bunks his whole game up by asking him about his old Fiona and Cake fanfictions. He insists that he didn't write those, the Ice King did, and that he'd much rather the world focus on his latest literary endeavor, ancient artifacts. He also gets harassed by a dog that's reminiscent of Jake. This dog wears a vocal translator similar in function, but not an exact match to the one in Season 1's My Two Favorite People. In the episode Islands Part 7, Helpers, all of the humans on Founders Island instantly fell in love with Jake because of his ability to speak. I wonder if the novelty of a talking dog inspired them to create this tech. Crushing that kid's dreams makes Simon feel like a bean show, so he closes shop to have a little panic attack as a treat. Peep the half-smoked joint in the ashtray in Simon's bathroom. Unlike Adventure Time, Fiona and Cake is fully embracing the fact that most of the characters in this universe are definitely stoners. Even Cake is! Simon heads to the Candy Kingdom to drink the grossest cocktail I've ever seen at Dirt Beer Guy's bar. Apparently, doing a martini with both cocktail onions and olives is called a gin salad, so I guess Simon's usual would be called a dirt beer salad. Behind the bar, there's a gigantic grody toe and a huge green bowl of liquor. and hot dog, ice cream, and lemon-flavored mixers. The lemon I get, but I do not want a margarita flavored with hot dog water. H2 hot dog water is kind of inspired though. We also see several posters for events in town, like the Hot Dog Film Festival, open mic night, something called Art 2, and what I can only imagine is a spoken word poetry night ad. Finn shows up rocking his now signature Jake tattoo, as well as the arm that Princess Bubblegum gifted to him, and we even get to see Jake's daughter TV. Finn was also adventuring with Bronwyn in distant lands, so it seems like he's been taking his nieces and nephews with him since his bro passed on. But although everyone seems to love Fionna and Cake, and there are more humans than ever in Ooh to befriend, Simon feels lost and alone. He can't relate to the characters he wrote or the life he once had now that he's back to normal. Also, he notes that the humans are future funky humans, which tracks with all their techno body mods. They might be human, but their culture and lifestyles are drastically different than Simon's. He's treated as an amusement exhibit for Glob's sake. To snap Simon out of his funk, Finn takes him to the heart of the forest, where Huntress Wizard warned him no one should ever go. Notice that he swapped out the PB gift arm for the arm we saw him use in Distant Lands. Our dude equips his prosthetics based on the adventures he goes on. It's clear that Finn is trying to recreate the time that Huntress Wizard helped him snap out of his depression over killing Fern for Simon. And although misguided, his attempt comes from a place of real sincerity. If you recall the episode The Wild Hunt, Finn was feeling like a bean show after accidentally giving Fern the ultimate buzz cut, and wasn't able to save the Candy Kingdom from a rogue Grumbo attack until Huntress Wizard forced his hand. She set up a situation where he had to kill the Grumbo to save her life, and by imagining that he was saving Fern, Finn was able to find his way back to his adventurer's heart. The blindfolds that Finn uses to let the universe guide them to where they needed to be is a callback to the Hall of Egress episode, where Finn learns to let go of all sensory, physical, and interpersonal relationships to guide himself out of a perpetual mind prison. Although he can't quite recreate the ego death that had to occur for him to find an exit, I think this could be his version of trying to help Simon escape his own mind prison. Likewise, Finn tries to force Simon into life-threatening situations that'll push him to overcome his inner anguish. And they even face down the cocaine bear version of a big green monster like the Grumbo. But it definitely does not work. Although, we do get our second dirty joke of the series, when Finn tells the evil bear to suck his nuts! These scenes definitely take the violence up to an 11, with Finn puncturing a tree trunk-sized hole in a mud skipper's face, and breaking the neck of a gigantic bear just by squeezing it. Simon walks home with a lot less blood in his body and a lot more despair in his heart. The song Part of the Madness, written and sung by Rebecca Sugar, plays as he heads back to the human village, conveying his overall sense of a loss of purpose in his life since losing Betty, and the comfort of the Ice King's madness in one fell swoop. The song talks about how unseen, unwanted, useless, and alone he feels now that he's no longer part of the madness and sadness of magic. I think that a lot of us feel this way after starting over. When a good thing ends, there's this overwhelming pressure to feel content in your new life, to hang the live, laugh, love signs and put on a brave face about trying again. But not every new beginning is a new adventure. Sometimes you start your life over and it sucks. It sucks after someone dies or breaks up with you or positionally eliminates you or leaves you behind. It sucks to lose a part of yourself that you can never get back. It sucks to reinvent yourself and feel like the new you sucks nuts without your old magic. Simon felt lost in that forest, not just because of the monsters or the blindfolds, but because he saw a version of himself that he hadn't seen before. And he didn't like that guy so much. When he was a human engaged to Betty, they got lost in a rainstorm searching for a lost temple, and she still managed to make them a 4-star dinner. When he was the Ice King, he was oblivious to most feelings, responsibility, and even danger. If he was still the Ice King in this situation, he would either be delusional about the level of peril he was in, or he'd be able to utilize his ice powers in some way. Now he's without Betty, without powers, and he's alive, and he's mentally sane, but he's alone, and he sucks at adventure. I also strongly believe that Simon's feelings are meant to strike a chord with the 30-something audience that grew up alongside Finn when the series first aired. Let's be real, life just isn't always as magical when you're a grown-up. And for a lot of us, it takes some serious work to find that magic in our daily existence. I mean, I haven't exactly built a shrine to a chaos god in my closet, but I have dedicated my entire career to talking about comics and cartoons because I don't want to grow up. If Fionna and Simon are teaching us anything in this series, it's that sometimes you really do have to fight for that magic. When Finn leads Simon out of the forest, he cuts through a bush with the same arm setting he used to murk Fern. He also mentions that he's gonna make a stop at Huntress Wizards, adding more evidence for Fintress Wizard shippers that the two remain romantically involved. As Simon walks through the forest, we see several parallels from episode 1 Fiona Campbell, including this guy juggling devil sticks in Ooh versus this guy juggling fushigi balls in Fiona's world, both groups of banana guards talking about Jerry from HR, and two skater fairies from Ooh that look just like the roller derby players that Fiona ran into. Considering the timing of these events, I'm wondering if these sad walks are occurring at exactly the same time, with Simon's experience immediately affecting Fiona. But Simon also has an encounter that mirrors a similar one that Marceline had in the episode Stakes 4, Empress Eyes. As he passes a little girl trying to grab fruit from a high tree, he starts to help her but is interrupted when her father pops out to assist her instead. This is just like Marceline's memory of her life after losing Simon to the Wish Crown. When she sees a bearded man, she gets excited thinking of Simon, only to be crushed moments later when she realizes he already has a whole family. When she tries to save the family from another vampire's attack, they flee from Marceline in terror, despite the fact that she was the one who rescued them. Because Marceline is the only one who knows how it feels to remain from the pre-Mushroom War days, and is a daughter figure to him, he calls her up to talk. Simon's phone contacts include Abracadaniel, Animal Control, Bimo, Finn, Gunter, Island Lady, Marcy, and PB. Abracadaniel is his old buddy from his wizarding days, as they created a secret wizard club together for all the loser wizards. Lady Island is a close friend of Ice King's, and he convinced her to dump her emotionally stunted D-bag boyfriend, Party God. Although we do get a sweet clip of Bonnie and Marcy failing to get matching tattoos during this sequence, their brief, interrupted conversation only serves as an additional reminder of Simon's loss of purpose. He doesn't just have an empty nest because Gunter is the Ice Thing now. His little baby vampire girl is all grown up with a life of her own. Also, the tattoo artist working on the girls looks a lot like Kamaji from Spirited Away. Marcy's skin also isn't able to hold a tattoo because she absorbed the regeneration powers from the moon back in the Stakes miniseries. When he gets home, Simon's like, F it, let's summon a chaos god, and gets his closet shrine set up Helgaji Pataki style, complete with a candlelit altar, the Enchiridion, a statue of Galb, a snail shell in a cage, Betty's magic purple carpet, a spiked horn, and Galb's little Tetris symbols hovering over all of it. Considering the incredible magical significance of the items at the shrine, I'm guessing that the snail shell is the shell of the snail that housed the Lich, and the horn is the Lich's missing horn repurposed as a magical artifact. It's even mended where the horn would have naturally twisted. The shrine also has some interesting bottled spell components making up Galb's eyes. There's bottled duck hat, playing off duck fat, and there's a bottle of Tim's Wind, and honestly, I don't want to know how Simon got his hands on that. Galb's hands appear to be bound, telling me that all of this is a ritual that will allow Simon access to Betty while keeping the Galb half of her constrained. Listen, I am all for a good deity shrine, but Simon has also kidnapped evil Choose Goose, who went to the dark side at the end of Distant Lands, Wizard City. Yeesh, dude is really off the deep end if he's kidnapping weird little guys. Finding inspiration once again in his fanfic, Simon begins a ritual intended to reveal his path back to Betty, with Galb's eyes reflected ominously in his glasses. He even does the funky little arm movements that we saw Betty do in Skyhooks 2 and Come Along With Me. Like Betty hooked her clips to Maja, Simon also uses ECG as a battery to power the portal. Unfortunately, Evil Choose Goose keeps interrupting him with his negative Nancy-ass rhymes, and although he doesn't manage to physically summon Galb Betty, there is an absolutely horrifying flash frame of the big red sky baby's menacing gaze when he electrocutes ECG. Although the spell got knocked up, he actually managed to open a portal on the back of his head, the icy dream portal that Cake leapt through at the end of the last episode. She's still in her normie cat form when she lands in Ooh, and we'll probably need to use the voice communicator that Simon yanked off the dog at the beginning of the episode to figure out how she got here and why she came. We fade cut to Prismo's time room where a button on his hot sauce riddled cosmic remote control lights up, likely alerting him to Cake's travels through space-time. Sadly, Kumail Nanjiani won't be back to voice this iconic character. He tweeted Adam Muto a few days ago expressing his disappointment, and Adam was basically like, bro, your agent said you were too busy getting ripped for your 30 seconds of shirtless screen time in the Eternals. During the credits, we see yet another dream about Fionna and Cake. This time, they're dreaming about sets of butterfly wings adorned with the same bone mask that the giant evil bear was wearing in the heart of the forest. This pretty much double confirms for me that these stills are glimpses into Simon's imaginationscape, and I truly cannot wait to see how all of this connects to Betty/Golb. These are some of my favorite details from Simon Petrikov, but I want to know if there's anything I missed in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to WhitneyVision, follow us on all of our socials, and I'll be back with a breakdown of episode 3, Cake the Cat, next.